No money for roads, all spent on missiles. The Kremlin's war budget leaves Russia in ruins. Running on empty, Russia's fuel crisis sparked fears on market collapse. Here's the latest, so you will be in focus. Subscribe and stay tuned. Across Russia, infrastructure repairs are being postponed on a massive scale. According to Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service, the official explanation cites a lack of funding. But in reality, there is only one reason. State money is being diverted to finance the war against Ukraine. And even those resources are running out fast. Analysts know that the Russian economy has begun to deteriorate even more rapidly. More on this topic from Nikita Skoblikov.
Russia's economy is deteriorating faster than expected. The Bank of Finland's Institute for Emerging Economies reports that all key indicators are declining. Even the Kremlin's most pessimistic forecasts are proving overly optimistic. The main reason? The all-out focus on war. Almost the entire capacity of the Russian state is now absorbed by military spending, leaving the rest of the economy gasping for air.
Our current forecast expects public spending to support domestic demand and especially production in sectors linked to the war effort. Growth of the other sectors of the economy will be limited by labour shortages and tightening borrowing constraints. Barring significant changes in Russian domestic policy or major external shocks, we see Russian GDP growing at only about 1% a year throughout the forecast period. From the Institute for Emerging Economies, Bank of Finland.
Finnish analysts stress that the Russian economy is being suffocated by military spending and its growing dependence on China. According to the report, more than 40% of Russia's state budget is now spent on the war against Ukraine and on so-called domestic security. Revenues, meanwhile, are growing more slowly than expenditures, widening the deficit. Moscow has only one tool left to plug the gaps, raising taxes and cutting back on its own citizens.
In the Novosibirsk, Orenburg, Yaroslavl, Voronezh and Ulyanovsk regions, as well as in Dagestan and the Krasnoyarsk territory, authorities have already begun planning increases to regional taxes and fees. In particular, the transport tax will rise by 10.9% in Novosibirsk region, by more than 10% in Krasnoyarsk territory, and by more than 30% in Orenburg region, from the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service on Telegram.
Along with tax hikes, the Kremlin is also slashing financial support for citizens and cutting various social payments. Analysts note that the Russian economy is now in an extremely vulnerable position.
We're seeing cuts to various programs that previously stimulated the Russian economy. For example, preferential mortgages and other payments. There's the increase in taxes, and even attempts to collect money retroactively after the financial books have already been closed. And there's much more of this to come.
At the start of 2025, Russian media reported that the country's public debt had reached 13.5% of GDP and continues to grow. Experts warn this trend is pushing the country toward financial instability. Resources are being drained not for development, but to maintain the war machine. As a result, across the Russian Federation, infrastructure repairs are being postponed, from roads and communication lines to schools and kindergartens. According to the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service, the official reasons cited are lack of funding, delays in materials, and equipment shortages. In reality, the reason is obvious. State funds are being redirected to sustain the war against Ukraine.
In Kamchatka, repairs to an undersea internet cable have been postponed until 2026, leaving residents at risk of losing high-speed access. A similar situation is seen in transport. Reconstruction of one of Rostov region's most dangerous highways, Novocherkassk-Kamenolomny, has been pushed back to 2027. In Biysk and near Ufa, road repair plans have also been cancelled due to a shortage of equipment and high equipment load. In Kaluga, the reconstruction of 2 central streets has been delayed for lack of funds, and in Kurgan, street repairs have been postponed indefinitely, from the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service on the website. These are problems that mark the beginning, or perhaps even the full onset, of stagnation in Russia's civilian economy. It's clear why. Resources are being pumped into the military sector, and naturally, the civilian side suffers. The government is performing a massive reallocation of funds in favour of the defence industry.
Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service sums it up this way. While the Kremlin keeps talking about regional development, the reality is the opposite. The country's resources have been scorched by war. Everything that still functions in Russia is aimed not at improving people's lives, but at keeping the war machine alive, reported by Nikita Skoblikov, UATV News.
Experts warn that the fuel crisis in Russia could escalate into a full-blown collapse. 3 more regions in Siberia and the Far East have imposed restrictions on fuel sales. At gas stations, no more than 20 liters of gasoline can be sold per person. How the war is turning into the collapse of Russia's energy market in our report.
The Novokuybishevsk oil refinery halted 2 main oil processing units after a drone strike on October 19th. This is the second shutdown of the plant in a month. The refinery is one of the largest in the region, producing over 20 types of petroleum products, with an annual refining capacity of around 5 million tons. It also supplies fuel for the Russian military. Rosneft has not yet commented on the situation. A shortage of gasoline and diesel has now been recorded in 84% of Russia's regions. Even in oil-producing Tyumen, fuel sales are restricted to 30 litres per person, while gasoline prices have surged to 70 to 80 rubles per litre. Since the start of the crisis, gas stations in many areas have run dry and prices continue to rise. Drone attacks on energy and fuel infrastructure are worsening the deficit.
Someone mentioned Novosibirsk. Well, here you go. No 92 or 95 octane. Not on one side, not on the other.
Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian oil refineries will continue to limit Russia's refining capacity at least until mid-2026. According to the International Energy Agency, Moscow is losing revenue and has been forced to restrict fuel exports.
Previously, we had assumed a normalization of refining activity as we approached year-end, but now embed a more cautious outlook. The IEA currently sees Russian processing rates at just under 5 million barrels a day through June 2026. Persistent attacks on Russian energy infrastructure have cut Russian crude processing by an estimated 500,000 barrels per day, resulting in domestic fuel shortages and lower product exports, from a report by the International Energy Agency.
The Institute for the Study of War notes that Ukraine's strikes on Russia's energy infrastructure are having an increasingly serious impact on the domestic fuel market. The attacks are causing shortages, price spikes, and risks of inflation and broader economic instability. The growing fuel crisis is also becoming one of the levers of pressure on Russia to end the war. Energy remains a key focus of the European Union's 19th sanctions package, which includes a full ban on Russian gas imports by January 1st, 2027.
Every euro we deny Russia is one that it can't use on war. Ministers were also clear today that after the 19th package, we should work on the next package. It will not be the last one. What we must not forget is that Russia is the aggressor and Ukraine is the victim here. So putting the pressure on Ukraine as the victim is not the right approach. And not only for Ukraine, but also for European security and the global security. Because if aggression pays off, it serves as an invitation to use it elsewhere as well.
Hungary will not block the EU's 19th sanctions package against Russia, said Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó, after the removal of provisions that, according to Budapest, conflicted with Hungary's national interests. Slovakia also set conditions for its approval of the new measures, citing continued dependence on Russian gas. Meanwhile, the Czech Republic said it is ready to provide emergency gas supplies to Slovakia after EU energy ministers agreed on a gradual phase-out of Russian gas imports.
We, as others, argued it is technically possible. We will again present our figures to the European Commission to show what capacity can be provided via Western routes. If Slovakia needs closer cooperation, Czechia is ready. Slovakia thanked us. The option is there, but Slovakia must request it. If it does, we are ready immediately. Lukáš Vlček, Czech Trade and Industry Minister, from the Euractiv publication.
India is gradually shifting from Russian to Asian crude, reports Bloomberg. The Indian company Reliance Industries is increasing purchases of Middle Eastern oil and preparing to place more orders soon. Meanwhile, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent emphasized the importance of increasing G7 economic pressure on Russia to hasten the end of the war, reported by Natalia Husak, Volodymyr Stengelov, UATV News.
What's your take on all this? Share your thoughts below. This is UATV. Stay sharp, in focus, and stay safe.